It's measured in results. At Rockwell Automation, our 24,000 employees across the globe focus every day on delivering business results for our customers. Because with every result achieved, we realize the promise of expanding human possibilities. That's why we're Rockwell. Our customers make products and deliver solutions that touch all of our lives. And they partner with us to realize measurable, consistent, and profitable business outcomes, delivering the real results they and their customers depend on. The people of Rockwell and our vast production technology portfolio make a real difference in industrial production quality, speed, and efficiency, making a difference in ramping up adequate supplies of life-saving vaccines, making a difference by helping deliver vehicles that are affordable, efficient, and safe, making a difference by engineering sustainability into every system and solution we deliver. Because at Rockwell, we believe better is possible. And the results we deliver add value for our customers every day, in every industry we serve. Our systems connect your company end to end with data-fueled insights, improving the decisions that deliver results and expanding human possibilities. Rockwell Automation. Results achieved.
My name is Mark Cristiano, and I'm the Global Commercial Director for Cybersecurity Services at Rockwell Automation. Joining me today is Brian Deacon, our Commercial Manager of Cybersecurity Services. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good, Mark. Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So, Brian, today's manufacturers, as we know, they're exposed to threats from both inside and especially outside the organization. And we talk to customers all the time, and keeping up with that constantly evolving threat landscape is a real challenge. You know, we've started to see the federal government and its private contractors have long relied on what we know as the National Institute of Standards and Technology to develop cybersecurity standards for guidance for information protection, for example. You know, one of the most important aspects of that structure is the NIST CSF, which helps provide structure and context to cybersecurity for industry, all industries, basically. You know, it's motivated private sector organizations to implement it to improve their cybersecurity and really reduce their potential risk of legal liability, which is really something that the federal government's really beginning to mandate. You know, since its inception, NIST CSF has helped all types of companies, all industries, face cyber threats with a flexible risk-based approach. You know, I like to say, Brian, it's a common language when we're speaking to customers, when we talk to them about no matter where they are in their maturity, beginning, middle, or end, right? That it's really a common language when we're talking to them so that we're able to kind of dial in and understand where they're at, right? So for all that being said, can you kind of level set for the audience based on that tee-up? What exactly does NIST mean?
Yeah, as you said, Mark, you know, NIST, N-I-S-T, it's the National Institute for Standards and Technologies. It's just a non-regulatory government agency that was created not necessarily around cybersecurity to begin with, but to drive innovation, promote industrial competitiveness in all of the areas, science, engineering, technology. And the main function is just to create best practices. It's a great way to share information. Security standards evolved over time, though, and the NIST CSF was joined. You mentioned NIST Cybersecurity Framework. It's a set of guidelines and best practices that can help guide and design an organization's cybersecurity strategy. It was launched in 2014. The framework aims basically to standardize the practices around how to uniformly adopt an approach to protect against data breaches and cyber attacks. It's fairly simple. That's what I think has been the reason that it's been successful, the reason that it sticks, the reason that it's still around today. Here we are almost 10 years later, and it's kept up with the times.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes there's a misconception that it's a product, or it's not. It's really just a set of guidelines and a common set of terminology, right, that everyone can use as they're looking at implementing cybersecurity programs, right?
Exactly.
So I guess the next question I have is, you know, is there a specific target persona or industry? Whom is NIST compliance intended to? And more importantly, what are the benefits?
Yeah, NIST starts out, it's a government agency, more or less. It's the National Institute, and it's a government agency at the most, at its heart. But private sector companies, critical infrastructure, we just see wide adoption, though, of it because it actually works. The simplicity of it, the guidance around it, the idea, though, that critical infrastructure government agencies are mandated, directed to adhere to it. However, the adoption of it's more widespread than that. It's developed for all companies of all sizes to start the journey, to understand gaps, to plug holes in their strategy, and keep up with times, new standards, new policies, new requirements all the time. And you can run it against NIST, and you can find compliance and you can find maturity within it. The real benefit is just that the framework can help organizations reduce risk, establish other standards and best practices. It's iterative. It can be long-term, again, 10 years plus old. We're just now into NIST 2.0 conversations and new, more advanced models of NIST. And that's not likely for something as crazy as the cybersecurity world, which changes every single day. So the fact that it's standing the test of time really is a testament to its ability to work.
Yeah, I think you mentioned NIST too. Just over the past several weeks, I believe that was just released, correct?
Yeah, there's a new little inner circle. NIST was linear left to right for the most part, but
yeah,
we've since introduced it as a circle. Ongoing assessment starts to be part of it, but govern now is in the middle of it, and I think they're going to call it a sixth category of NIST, which is really what I'm seeing. I mean, we may talk about it later here yet today, but govern being a sixth category of NIST shows an evolution and a willingness to adopt and change with the times.
Yeah, you know what I like about it? I like the simplicity and the ease of understanding in terms of what I'll call the core functions. And I was hoping maybe you could kind of walk the audience through what are the core functions of NIST CSF?
Yeah, sure. The core functions of cybersecurity activities, desired outcomes, a benchmark of what you may achieve, whatever you consider your organizational cybersecurity utopia to perhaps be, if that's even a thing. It's just 5 simultaneous continuous functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And it's across an attack continuum of what happens before an event, an attack, what happens during, and what happens after. If you think about that, it makes a lot of sense. Before something happens, I really need to identify where something could happen. I can't protect what I haven't identified. During an event, you'd want to be able to detect it. And after something happens, you'll want to respond and recover. So that's the simplicity of it. That's what really works. That's what resonates.
Yeah, I especially, I hear a lot from customers when we're talking to them. Where do I start, right? And I think that's probably the most common question that we get. Many customers know that they need to do something, but they don't know where to start. And maybe you can kind of help everybody with that in terms of what are some common starting points, knowing that I always say there's no right answer, right, Brian? But what are some basics? If you were Cyber 101 is what I like to call it.
Yeah, I like that where to start question. We have a real simple way of answering that question these days. It's start where you can start or where you need to go start. But identify is a perfectly great place to go start. Without being able to protect what you can't see, I'm always amazed that once we've done the identify category with a customer, meaning we've looked at an entire threat landscape, all of the digital assets associated to an environment with vulnerabilities and prioritization of those vulnerabilities, it's really amazing. This happens 10 out of 10 times. I have X number of assets or X number of vulnerabilities. It's 10X, Mark. I mean, it's really 10 out of 10 times that it's 5X, 10X, 20X of what they think it is. Oh, it's 5,000. No, it's 50,000. And so Identify is really important because of this inventory and understanding what your landscape looks like. I like this idea of NIST and reassess because it just changed. We took this assessment, we understood what it to be on that day. Let's do it again, and it's something different. And really, that's minutes or days or weeks or months. It changed. There's no doubt about it. And so, you want to get started and identify. Get really good at it, by the way, because if you don't know that they're out there, that is a vulnerability and that is an open hole that can be exploited.
Yeah, and Brian, I think that the complexity of identify on the OT side of the infrastructure is so much more complex than IT, right? IT is very sterile. They have all the same servers and printers and everything. But when you look on the OT side, there's disparate control systems that are acquired through acquisitions. There's drives and PLCs and workstations. It is much, much more complex getting your arms around that protect surface, right?
Yeah. Well, when you're thinking about the identify, you're identifying assets that are within 5, 7, 10 years old in the IT space. You could be identifying assets that are 25, 30, 40, 50 years old in the OT space. So even trying to get really good at identify can be difficult. So when somebody says that they've identified all their assets, I'm not positive anybody's ever really been able to go do that. It takes a very specific skill set, a very specific tool to be able to go do that. And like you said, when you start to move into protect, now you're talking about, well, how do I even protect assets that are 25 plus years old? And that's where protect really starts to hone in on things like firewalls, IDMZs, segmentation, the actual network itself. If you start talking about patch management, managed infrastructure in the protect phase, I get it. But some things that you've identified, if you are very good at identifying, you will come to realize you simply can't go ahead and do the same things that you might do in the IT space. And you're going to have to look at some different types of protect responses.
Right. So detect next.
Yeah, detect is where we get serious because you've identified a bunch of assets that had a bunch of vulnerabilities. And by a bunch, I mean it could be into the thousands, and you've done what you could to protect them through firewalls and IDMZs. But undoubtedly, the landscape changes. And if you don't keep up with this in real time, you're at risk. And so detect is a big investment. This is intrusion detection in real time. This is your IDS tool. Being able to keep up with a changing threat landscape, be able to keep up with the sophistication of the attack, being able to identify new assets coming into your environment on a very regular basis. You have to go do this, detect in real time. And, there are certain spectrums to talk about this oh wow moment. And I think once you've done a really in-depth asset inventory, you're going to be in the oh wow moment and then in a firefighting moment. But what will bring you to be able to sleep at night is a real-time threat detection solution, a real IDS real-time solution.
Yeah.
Phase.
In my experience, Brian, is many of our customers want to skip to this step because it's something that everybody understands, right? It's tangible. But if you skip those first two steps and you implement this technology without understanding the assets and the risk profile associated with those assets, the tool will not deliver the value that you expected from it.
Yeah, Mark, let me give you a good example of that. That's a great point. A customer we are working with, they did intrusion detection. You know what it told them? They have a lot of intrusions to the tune of 400,000. I mean, like, let's just say you got 400,000 emails tomorrow. Like, nobody's happy with that. It's useless. I think I would throw the computer away. But being able to contextualize that is what's important. And you'll only be able to do that if you've done some level of identification and segmentation and protection. So if there's some level of 400,000 down to 1,000 or down to 100, now I'm getting my arms wrapped around real-time threat detection. What is a threat? Well, that one's segmented away. Well, that one has a lower priority. Now you're really considering what is a threat, and really being able to move into the next categories, respond and recover.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue, Brian. Alarm fatigue and just the sheer volume of alarms coming out of the detect phase through any number of different tools has to be evaluated and triaged. And talk a little bit more about the value of respond and recover.
Yeah, this is tricky here because this starts to get into organizational structure. I always like asking customers, peers, people in the industry about organizational structure. How is your IT and OT organized? Do you communicate? Do you sit on opposite sides of the room? I mean, I think 10 out of 10 rooms I go into with IT and OT, IT sits on one side, OT sits on the other. So I'm sure that IT has an incident response plan. If the emails go down, everybody can go to lunch for a lot longer, but they have a plan. If the diaper making machine goes down, like everybody's going to be working overtime, right? So it's really, how do you get these teams together? How do you understand what you're going to respond to and how you're going to respond? That's really important. There's not a lot of people who really have this right. This is a real high level of maturity. I think NIST gets this right in saying you've got to be able to respond, but I think there's a next level of response. It's practice, and it's let's do it, and let's do it again, and let's make sure everybody in the organization understands it. Mark, it's been a long time since I remember the early days of safety. I'm not that old. People could probably tell me more stories about it than I would remember. But when safety was first introduced, it was, hey, that's not necessarily my responsibility. Then it became design it out or design safety in. And then it became, hey, we're going to have a safety minute every meeting. That starts to be the response you have to have. And so for a mature organization to get into this respond category and get good at it is really key.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. So let's remind everyone why we're here, right? We've got an upcoming webinar series that we're promoting today. This is just a precursor. We're going to go deep on all of the things that we talked about today. So Brian, let's tell everyone what's coming up, what's exciting about this webinar series that we're going to be hosting.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm not sure I've seen this done before, but this is a 7-part webinar series where we're going to explore in depth each area of the NIST cybersecurity framework. It kicks off August 31st. Attendees have the opportunity to go ahead and do a quick cybersecurity preparedness assessment. This is great because through 25 questions, you can baseline yourself right away on some things that you might want to go do to go ahead and improve your cyber maturity. You'll learn a little bit more about why each category matters, what you can do inside of each category, and how that might affect your security posture. So, the webinar series are going to explore more than just the category itself. They're going to explore what you can do inside of each of the categories to put an action into place. It could be a very nice self-examination of what you've previously done and maybe where you've fallen down before. Mark, a story I like to tell is that NIST in reverse is not what you want to do, but sometimes people have to do it, and they've done it out of fear or just by sheer need and function. And so if you get into this and you're thinking about each of the categories and you're wondering what you can go do more of, it's a good thing because you can always go do more. Anybody who's ever experienced any negative effect from a cybersecurity event wishes that they had done more. This is a good thing to go ahead and think about what is the more you can go do. And if you haven't got started, this is a great way to come in and just think about how you get started.
Awesome. That's great. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be very impactful and helpful for our customers. It sounds like an event not to miss. I'd like to remind everyone that the link to register for this webinar series is in the body of this post. I know I'm personally looking forward to the series, and I'm actually going to be hosting the final session on creating a business case around cybersecurity. So I'm really looking forward to that. But, we're looking forward to educating about how NIST CSF and how Rockwell Automation service offerings can help today's manufacturers maintain a a stronger cybersecurity policy and posture. And I really feel as if it's going to be very impactful. So I want to thank everyone for joining. Be sure to register for the webinar. It's going to be very, very educational and very impactful. And thank you for joining.